It's Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021. A few things to talk about today. And I think it's important that we do talk about it. I want to talk about this Fed meeting today. More nonsense, more kicking the can down the road, more lies and more reasons of why we all need to be preparing and why we all really need to be waking up to what is going on. Jerome Powell came out today and he talked about inflation, but he didn't really talk about why we're seeing this inflation. He said we're seeing inflation because of the supply chain bottleneck. And I want to say this, inflation isn't coming from these supply chain problems. It's coming from money printing. Jerome Powell is not a dumb man, but he is not being honest with any of us. You know that this inflation is not being caused from these bottlenecks. It is being caused by massive money printing. This is where the inflation is coming from. And they are going to continue to print money. And this is why we're going to see more inflation right here in America and more inflation across the globe because every country is printing money. Mid-November, the Fed will begin tapering $15 billion a month in treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. This is like going from eating 4 cheeseburgers a day to 3 cheeseburgers a day. It's not going to really make that big of a difference. So they're really doing nothing. And I just took some notes here while I was watching this so I could share this with all of you in case you didn't see it. And if you did, please comment down below. Give me your thoughts on what you thought the real message was today. The Fed will adjust tapering with changes in economic outlook. This means it could accelerate rates. It could raise 1 time next year. It could raise 3 times next year. It could be a half point. It could be a quarter point. Maybe they won't raise rates at all. I believe they're going to. I believe that they're in very, very big trouble. And they are not being honest with the American people. They do not want to rattle these markets. Look, if Jerome Powell came out, and again, he's a very intelligent man. He knows what's happening. If he came out and just told us a little bit of the truth, these markets would crash today. Instead, markets across the board, up, everything, green today, new all-time highs. The markets just continue. As long as, now if he would have said they were going to raise rates at the end of this year or January, these markets would have a problem. But there's no rate hike in the foreseeable future right now. But I think most of us would agree we are going to begin to see rates begin to rise in 2022. But as of right now, this year, nothing. And so markets like the sound of that and they are up. Our policy has been adapting to reality. That's what Jerome Powell said today. Can you believe it? That's the farthest thing from reality. We'll give strong support to economic recovery. Of course they will. And let me tell you, they can taper, but they can begin to print as fast as they need to if they begin to see any problems. If there's a hiccup, they will begin to print more and more money necessary to stop any hemorrhaging. Economic growth should pick up this quarter. We should be seeing massive economic growth with the trillions of dollars that they injected into this economy, but the money's running out. The government subsidies, the benefits, the stimmies, it's all running out. And we are not going to see real economic growth. Sorry. September unemployment, he said, is at 4.8%. Do you believe that? I have a bridge to sell you. I just looked at the job forecast tomorrow for jobless claims last week. We're going to get those numbers tomorrow morning. They're predicting 280,000 people will have filed first-time jobless claims last week. But Jerome Powell doesn't talk about 300,000 people plus per week for 19 months filing unemployment claims. Doesn't mention that. He doesn't mention the automaker disruption and the literal depression that is taking place with our automakers. Doesn't even talk about that. He doesn't talk about the housing bubble. He doesn't talk about the commercial real estate depression that is taking place. He doesn't talk about anything. He basically just says everything is okay and they are monitoring things. Labor supply problems should diminish. Based on what, Mr. Powell? Admits inflation is running above 2%. Well, finally, a little bit of truth. But see, they can't hide that, right? Because every time you go to the grocery store, the gas station, you make out that rent check, you see it. And they can't hide that. He said right now is not the time to raise rates. They should have been raising rates years ago. They have created a monster here. They have created Frankenstein here because they have done nothing but printed money, helped the people at the very top, and now they've caused very, very big trouble. They've caused a housing bubble, a bond bubble, a stock market bubble, while millions of people are not working, while millions of people have zero money in their checking account, zero money for retirement. They have caused humongous trouble here. He says it's difficult to predict future inflation. Well, I'm going to make a prediction here for you all right now, ladies and gentlemen. Future inflation is going up. 2022, you're going to see continued inflation. That is my prediction. Jerome Powell can't make that prediction. I'll do it for you. It's going up. Shortages will persist next year, but inflation will cool down. He's actually saying inflation will come down next year and shortages will persist. I believe shortages will persist, but inflation is not going to cool down. He said this: we need the trust of the American people. We need the trust of the American people. Anybody that trusts the Fed is out of their minds. They have lied to us from day one. They continue to lie, and they have caused these problems. And they've done nothing, while a few people at the very, very top have capitalized, have been rewarded. And what they're doing to the majority of people, while we're at 0% interest rates, anybody saving money is punished, and they're forcing people into these very, very volatile, dangerous markets, this casino, because people cannot earn interest on their money. So they're now being forced to gamble their money in these markets. And right now, as the markets are up, everything is fine. But the day of reckoning is coming. And there are going to be millions of people that get wiped out. And nobody's complaining right now as it goes up. But things are going to come down so fast that it is going to rip people's faces off. It is going to wipe people out. It is going to wipe their wealth out. And people are seeing their wealth being wiped out right now just with this inflation. You haven't seen anything yet. This is why they call it a wealth transfer, ladies and gentlemen. But we're seeing the middle class being decimated, small business decimated, and yet people say, when's the collapse going to happen? Well, they're watching it every day. The same people who are not working, the same people who can only get a job that gives them 18, 22 hours a week, low wages, while inflation just eats them alive. They have no retirements, they have no benefits, and they ask, where's the collapse? And these are the same people living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck with no money saved up, no net worth, nothing except debt, car payments, lease payments, rent payments, credit card payments, college tuition payments, nothing but debt. More and more of their essentials being put on credit cards. And we're going to see more and more people homeless and more people dependent on the system to feed them, to take care of them. Yet people are wondering, where's the collapse? They don't see the debt of nearly $29 trillion. They don't see these massive deficits. They don't see that the system wants to tax you even more. They don't see the opportunity inequality, wealth inequality that's taking place. You're blind. How much is the average American willing to pay for a gallon of gas? I mean, the average American who goes, where's the collapse? Who's paying? I mean, we just paid $5.09 for super unleaded. You're paying $4.55 at one of the cheapest gas stations out here for regular, and people are wondering, where's the collapse? It's happening right now. Look at your purchasing power. Your purchasing power is collapsing daily. Go to the grocery store. How much can the average American, the average consumer, continue to afford to put gas in the car, to go to the grocery store? Millions have disappeared from the labor force. Millions. Where are they? Where have they gone? Last year, 52% of young adults were living at home with their parents. A couple articles I printed out today just to reflect on this recap of the Fed meeting today. in 2022, things aren't going to get done. This on the economiccollapse.com, Michael Snyder's website, very, very good site. People are not going back to work. We're looking at people in major cities not going back to work. People who these cities depend on to take care of these cities, not going back to work. I'm looking at this trash pile up right now in New York. It is unbelievable. Blocks of trash because trash workers are not going back to work. And when you have trash like this building up, you have a rat epidemic building up, then you have a typhus outbreak, and this thing just is never ending. But people are not going back to work. And so it would have been nice if Jerome Powell would have elaborated a little bit on this when our cities are completely breaking down because people are walking out, leaving, not going back to work, quitting their jobs, retiring early. Here's another one. As global food prices spiral out of control, panic buying of food will become increasingly common. So if things are going to get better next year, Mr. Powell, how come people across the globe are buying food at an alarming rate? Panic buying. What do they see coming that you're not telling us? Jobless claims preview. Another 275,000 individuals likely filed new claims last week. We'll get the numbers tomorrow morning. That should be interesting. Zillow shares plunge as investors digest home flipping halt. Jerome Powell, really, I didn't hear him discuss anything on the housing market, the housing bubble, the bond bubble, the stock market bubble, nothing. But I saw Zillow stock down just over 23% about 30 minutes ago. Kathy Wood bought $25 million of Zillow Tuesday before the stock cratered today. In fact, I think it was down, I saw it down around 26% at one point, but right now, as I make this video, it's down 23%, so she's lost a lot of money there. Hope she's right. Hope it comes back, but what is this telling us about the housing market when we're starting to see these tech companies who were trying to flip homes, such as Zillow, absolutely being pummeled now? I believe the housing market is going to follow. We are going to see a housing crash here in the United States. Not saying it's going to happen today or next week, but we are beginning to see signs that things are about to change in the housing market. But I just wanted to share that with all of you today. I don't believe anything Jerome Powell pretty much said today. And I think that most people don't believe it either. Actions speak louder than words. They're not doing much except kicking the can down the road here. But don't underestimate the Fed, ladies and gentlemen. They're getting forced into a corner. And as long as this inflation continues to heat up, it's going to get to a point where they're going to have to react. And they really should have been proactive years ago and raised rates. This is not healthy for the economy to be sitting here at zero for so long. But nobody wants to feel the pain. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to stop the music from playing. But somebody is going to have to step up here at some point because we are going to continue to see inflation heat up. And it's going to get to a point where it's going to run out of control. It's going to get to a point where people are not going to be able to afford to put a gallon of gas in their massive SUV. They're going to have a difficult time going to the grocery store to feed their family of four. There's going to be a point where people just are not going to be able to afford to live day to day. And as we get closer to that point, the Fed is going to have to make a very serious decision here, and that is raising rates. And the question is, how high will they raise rates, and how many times will they raise rates? And I know people are laughing. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen next year. It's never going to happen. It's impossible. The debt's too big. I'm here to tell you I completely disagree. I believe that you're either going to have runaway inflation that could turn into hyperinflation, which is going to be very, very bad for your country, or you're going to have to step up and you're going to have to start getting ahead of this problem, and that's raising rates. We're so far behind already. it's really going to hurt. And it is going, many people will say, cause a recession. I'm here to say I believe it will cause a depression once we do it, but it's going to have to be done. And I believe that the day of reckoning is coming, and it's either going to be Jerome Powell or somebody else who's going to have to do it. But again, you have a couple choices here. You turn into Venezuela and you start running into very hot inflation, or you step up, you get ahead of this, and you start raising interest rates. And that is going to crash markets. That's going to crash the bond market, the real estate market, the stock market. It's going to be a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And this is why I believe it's important to have some cash on the sidelines, because this is where the opportunities are going to come from. As soon as they start raising rates and these markets begin to implode and the housing market implodes, cash is going to have some purchasing power. And I believe you better have some real assets like gold and silver also. But I think you're going to need cash as a tool to come in and take advantage of some opportunities when this happens. I do believe, sincerely, and I could be totally wrong here, but I believe we're going to start seeing rates rise in 2022, in the summer of 2022. Now, do not underestimate the Fed. If things start really getting out of control, they could raise rates much sooner in 2022. They could raise rates much higher than a quarter basis point, okay? Don't underestimate what they could do. I know many people believe they're going to continue to go along with the same old song and dance here, and they are going to for a while. But at some point, they are going to have no choice. And when these rates go up, life is going to change for a lot of people. The paper millionaires, they're going to wake up and see reality. We are going to see reality, ladies and gentlemen, sooner or later. Today, again, it's the illusion, but reality is coming. God bless you all. Thanks for watching. Share this video. Give it a thumbs up. Hit that bell notification. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to talking with all of you very, very soon. God bless.